Have you ever felt that sharp pain in your chest when she, the woman who keeps you up at night, walks past you as if you're invisible? That moment when you see her laugh with another man, while you, from the shadows, wonder what he has that you don't. Because today I'm going to tear back the veil that hides an ancient truth about female desire, a truth that contradicts everything you've ever been taught. It's not about cheap tricks or manipulation. It's something deeper, more primitive. It's the genetic code of attraction that barely 3% of men know, and even fewer master. If you dare to keep listening, I warn you, you won't be able to go back to being the same. Because when you understand what I'm about to reveal to you, you'll see the world of relationships like a chessboard where, until now, you've been moving the wrong pieces. If this has already given you that chill of recognition, hit the like button right now, because what follows could transform your life forever. Let's walk this forbidden path together. Look in the mirror. Take a good look at the man staring back at you. That man who has bought expensive colognes believing the scent would give him confidence. That man who has spent fortunes on gifts, thinking money buys affection. That man who replies to texts instantly because he believes constant availability shows genuine interest. And ask yourself, where has all that led you? Straight to the friend zone, that emotional limbo where your good intentions transform into romantic invisibility. The brutal truth, brother, is that you were programmed to fail from the start. Society, romantic movies, even your own mother, they all taught you the wrong way. They told you to be kind, polite, attentive. And don't get me wrong, those are important qualities for being a good human being, but alone, isolated from more primitive and powerful elements, they don't create that unstoppable attraction that makes a woman unable to get you out of her mind. Do you know what does create it? Tension, mystery, a little calculated danger that activates her deepest instincts. Think about it. Why does that guy who isn't even that handsome manage to conquer them all? Because he possesses that unshakable confidence that makes women gravitate around him like planets around the sun. Because he understands something fundamental that you haven't grasped yet. Seduction doesn't happen in logic. It doesn't unfold in the realm of rational conversations and convincing arguments. It happens in instinct, in her subconscious, in those primitive layers of the brain where decisions are made before the conscious mind even realizes it. Do you think women consciously choose who they fall in love with? Of course not. It's their primitive brain that decides, that ancestral part that comes from caveman times, when survival depended on choosing the right partner. And that brain isn't swayed by flowers or expensive dinners. It's not impressed by romantic gestures pulled from movies. It cares about signals of value, social dominance, the ability to protect. Now, before you think I'm telling you to become a caveman, calm down. It's not about being rude or disrespectful. It's about understanding the ancient dance between bodies and minds that happens in seduction. It's about activating the right triggers at the precise moment, about striking those emotional chords that resonate at frequencies most men don't even know exist. I spent over 10 years studying this, testing it on the battlefield of human interactions, observing what works and what crumbles miserably. And what I discovered goes against everything preached by the relationship experts, who swarm, selling sweet but ineffective advice. Do you want to know the secret no one tells you? Women don't want a man who's always available, who's there every time they snap their fingers. They want a man who has options, a man who doesn't need them to feel complete. Paradoxical, isn't it? The less you need her, the more she'll desire you. It's a contradiction that defies all romantic logic, but it's a psychological truth as solid as the laws of physics. But how do you demonstrate this without becoming an insensitive jerk? How do you create that aura of detached interest without seeming fake or calculating? That's exactly what the system I'm about to reveal to you will teach. There are 4 fundamental pillars that will transform you from an ordinary guy into an attraction magnet. Pay attention because what's coming is pure gold, distilled from years of observation and practice. The first pillar is movement. Seduction doesn't begin with a polite hello that vanishes into thin air without a trace. It begins with a disruption, a fracture in the expected, a spark in the silence that awakens something dormant within her. Forget everything you were told about traditional introductions. Forget that robotic, "How are you?" that dies the moment it's uttered and immediately categorizes it as just another run-of-the-mill interaction. The initial move isn't about being agreeable or harmless. It's about taking control of the emotional rhythm from the first second. establishing that you're not just another one in the herd of predictable men who approach her with the same tired lines and approaches she's heard 1,000 times. Imagine approaching her, but instead of being predictable like everyone else, you say something like, "You look like someone who hates small talk but secretly loves chaos." In that moment, something shifts in her expression. She pauses, blinks, her brain activating like an engine that just received high-octane fuel. Why does this happen? Because you've interrupted her automatic pattern, that mental filter programmed to automatically dismiss generic men who approach her. In that instant, you're no longer one of them. You've sparked her curiosity, and curiosity is the gateway drug to desire. Movement is the art of pattern disruption, the exact point where the monotony of her day shatters like glass under the impact of your presence. We're not talking about memorized lines from some cheap seduction manual. We're talking about creating an instant where time stops, where her brain pauses and thinks, "This one's different." Most men never understand this. The first line isn't just an introduction. It's the foundation of the entire game that follows. It's like the opening move in chess. It sets the tempo for the entire game. It defines the emotional battlefield. If you open weak with something common and predictable, you've already put yourself on the defensive. You'll spend the rest of the interaction chasing her, trying to recover lost ground. But if you open strong with something unexpected, poetic, or slightly absurd, you gain the frame advantage. Now she's in your world, playing by your rules. This is movement. It's not about exactly what you say. It's about how sharply you cut through the everyday noise. It's about projecting a clear psychological signal. I'm not here to desperately impress you. I'm here to see if you're worth the game. And this isn't just verbal, it's energetic. It's your tone, your timing, the deliberate calm in your speech, that slight smile as if you already know how this whole thing will end. Men who approach with high-frequency, predictable lines are dismissed by her subconscious in seconds. But a man who walks with a sense of controlled unpredictability, he becomes a question she wants to answer. Never forget this. Women are attracted to what they don't immediately understand. So be the enigma, be the disruption, be the man who speaks not to impress with pretty words, but to provoke something within her that she had forgotten she could feel. When your first move makes her pause and think, the game is already yours. Imagine this. You're at a bar. You see a beautiful woman who attracts you. The average man would approach with a, "Can I buy you a drink?" Or even worse, with an obvious compliment about her appearance. Predictable, forgettable, dismissible. It's what she gets 50 times every weekend. You, on the other hand, approach calmly, with presence, look her in the eyes a second longer than normal, and say, "You know, there's something about the way you're holding your glass, like you're about to tell a secret no one is ready to hear." It's not a rehearsed line. It's a genuine but unexpected observation. You've created a moment where she has to recalibrate, where her usual mental script is interrupted. This kind of opening does several things simultaneously. It shows you're observant, suggests you see beyond the superficial, and immediately creates an air of complicity between you two. You've established that you're not just another one in the flock. You've planted the seed of curiosity. But movement goes beyond initial words. It's the way you occupy space, how you modulate your voice, how your gestures communicate more than your words. It's a subtle dance where every step communicates intention without desperation. There are men who believe movement is about being loud, drawing attention, being the life of the party. Nothing could be further from the truth. True movement is like that of a predator. Economical, precise, intentional. You don't waste energy. You don't seek validation from everyone. Your focus is clear and direct, but never rushed. Haste is the enemy of effective movement. The man who rushes towards her, who shows himself eager to impress, has lost before he even began. Powerful movement has its own tempo, a cadence that says, "I have all the time in the world because I know my worth." One of the keys to effective movement is the ability to create space for her to enter your reality, not the other way around. Common men try to enter her world, seek to fit into her life, her expectations. The man who masters movement creates his own gravitational field where she wants to enter. This is achieved through questions she doesn't expect, observations that make her reflect, strategic silences that invite her to fill the void. You're not bombarding her with information about yourself, trying to sell your worth. You're creating a mystery she wants to solve. Movement also includes the ability to emotionally pivot. You can shift from intellectual to sensual, from serious to playful, without warning. This emotional flexibility shows a complexity women find magnetic. You're not one-dimensional, you're not predictable. Think of the impact it creates when, in the middle of an intense conversation, you pause, smile, and completely change direction. That contrast, that ability to surprise, is addictive. It creates small dopamine spikes in her brain. It keeps her hooked, wanting more. Another crucial aspect of movement is the ability to read and respond to nonverbal feedback. Observe her eyes, her breathing, the way she leans her body towards you. Effective movement isn't a monologue. It's a dialogue where words are only one part of the conversation. When you notice something resonates with her, go deeper. When you feel resistance, pivot. It's like navigating a river. You don't fight the current. You use its force to steer your boat. Resistance isn't rejection. It's an invitation to adjust your approach. The first pillar of movement establishes everything that comes after. Without effective movement, the other pillars are built on sand. With powerful movement, you're laying the groundwork for an attraction that has nothing to do with your physical appearance or social status, but with something much deeper and more magnetic. Your ability to create emotional experiences she doesn't find in other men. This is where the entire foundation of attraction begins to harden into something unbreakable, something untouchable, something extraordinarily rare in the modern world. Confidence isn't what you say, it's what you don't need to say. You see, she perceives everything before you even open your mouth. She reads your essence. She observes how you sit, how long you hold eye contact, whether your presence fills the room or begs for space. True confidence is silent. It walks unannounced, speaks slowly, moves with certainty, and above all, doesn't fear loss. That's the attitude you need to embody. I don't need you, but I'm not afraid of you either. This is the stance that flips the entire power dynamic on its head, and once you learn it, she starts to qualify herself to you, instead of you having to prove your worth to her. Let me make this visual so you understand it completely. Think about the last time you walked into a car showroom. The salesperson who hounded you, who clung to you like a shadow, who kept asking, "Do you like it? Do you want to try it? What do you think?" He radiated a desperation you could smell, and you instantly had the upper hand because his need diminished his value in your eyes. Now imagine another salesperson. He greets you calmly, elegantly shows you the car, then quietly withdraws. He knows what he's offering. He knows you'll feel it if it's right for you. Suddenly, you feel the need to prove you're worthy of the deal. You start asking questions. You start justifying your interest. It's exactly the same in seduction. When you demonstrate that your life is complete, rich in purpose, full of joy, anchored in strength, with or without her, you become the prize, not the desperate hunter, not the emotional beggar pleading for attention. And women don't chase men they pity. They chase men they respect, men who represent something they desire to achieve or experience. How do you radiate this attitude through your body? Because words lie, but energy never does. Shoulders relaxed, yet strong. Upright posture that speaks of dignity. Unwavering eye contact that doesn't apologize for existing. Slow, steady breathing. Precise and intentional movements as if you owned time itself. No trembling hands, no nervously bouncing legs, no fast, anxious speech. You speak as if you trust your silence, because studies show that over 90% of communication is nonverbal. She doesn't just hear you, she feels you in every fiber of her being. And if your energy says, "Please love me," she'll pull away, even if your words say something entirely different. But if your presence says, "You're welcome to join me, but I won't bend for approval," she'll lean into you because detachment is intoxicating. It's addictive. It's what most men never manage to convey. This is the paradox that changes everything. The less you seek validation, the more your value multiplies in her eyes. So remember, don't chase her attention. Chase your own inner power. Because when a man becomes magnetic from within, everything on the outside begins to orbit around him as if he were the gravitational center of his own universe. Attitude isn't something you fake. It's something you cultivate through a constant practice of self-respect. It's deeply believing that your time, your energy, your presence have intrinsic value, not because others grant it to you, but because you know it. When you see a man who naturally attracts women, it's not because he's the best looking or the richest. It's because he has cultivated an attitude that says, I am complete within myself. This completeness is magnetic because it's rare. In a world full of people hungry for external validation, the man who validates himself becomes an oasis. But there's a critical nuance here. Attitude isn't arrogance. Arrogance is a mask that hides insecurity. True confidence doesn't need to boast, doesn't need to denigrate others, doesn't need constant confirmation. True confidence is calm, stable, consistent. The man with a magnetizing attitude listens more than he speaks. He observes, he assimilates. When he speaks, his words carry weight because he doesn't scatter them. He doesn't fill silences out of fear of emptiness. He uses silence as a tool, as a canvas where she can project her own thoughts and emotions. This attitude manifests in concrete decisions. You don't cancel important plans because she invited you last minute. You don't rearrange your life to accommodate her whims. You don't abandon your passions or friendships to dedicate all your time to her. Not because you don't value her, but because you value the integrity of your own life. When you have this attitude, she notices. Not only does she notice it, she feels it on a visceral level. She wonders, why isn't this man trying to impress me like the others? Why can't I manipulate him with the usual tactics? And that question is the beginning of fascination. One of the most common mistakes men make is believing they can fake this attitude. They think they can act disinterested while inwardly dying for her attention. But here's the trap. She has a radar for incongruence. She can sense when your words and your energy don't match. And nothing kills attraction faster than incongruence. That's why attitude must be cultivated from within. It must be authentic. It must come from a place of true internal abundance. And the only way to create that abundance is by developing a life you're passionate about, regardless of your success with women. Do you have goals that excite you? Do you have passions that consume you? Do you have values you won't compromise on? Do you have a purpose greater than finding a partner? If you can answer yes to these questions, you're on the path to a magnetic attitude. When she senses that you're a man with direction, with purpose, with passion for something greater than her, she is paradoxically more attracted to you. Because she instinctively knows such a man is rare and valuable. Such a man can protect, can provide, can lead, not by brute force, but by force of character. The right attitude turns you into the selector, not the selected. It allows you to evaluate if she's right for your life, not if you're right for hers. This shift in perspective completely alters the power dynamic in the interaction. You're no longer trying to convince her of your worth, you're calmly assessing hers. And here's the most powerful part. When you genuinely adopt this attitude, you don't just transform your success with women, you transform your entire life. You become more effective at work, more authentic in your friendships, more present in every aspect of your existence. Because a magnetic attitude isn't just a seduction tool. It's a way of moving through the world with authenticity and personal power. This is the most counterintuitive of all. The seductive art of stepping back right at the peak of connection. Not because you don't care, but because you understand one of the most powerful truths about female desire. Nostalgia creates obsession. Emptiness generates desperate longing. You know that perfect moment when the conversation flows effortlessly, when smiles come naturally, when she's completely present with you, engrossed in your presence, hanging on your every word. That's not the time to push forward and squeeze every last drop out of that connection. That's the time to leave, to disappear, just when everything feels most alive and promising. Yes, exactly, at the peak, just when it feels most electric and full of possibilities. You simply say, "I'd love to stay longer, but I have to go. Let's continue this another time." What happens next isn't logical. It's completely chemical and primitive. Her brain releases a significant amount of dopamine, and then you disappear. You've just become the episode that ends on a cliffhanger, the song that cuts off at the best part, the book that closes just as the plot gets interesting. Think of the last addictive series you watched. It didn't explain everything. It didn't resolve every plot line. It left you hungry for more. That's what you need to become. Not the 3-hour movie that drags on until everyone loses interest, but the tense, suspenseful episode that leaves her breathless and counting the days until the next season. This means you don't reply the moment she texts you. You don't answer every call as if you're waiting by the phone. You live your life. You move through your world like a man on a mission, a man who has options, purpose, his own gravity. Because when she notices your absence, her emotional radar activates in a way she can't control. Where you are, who you're with, why you haven't replied. And in that moment, she's not just thinking about you, she's feeling you. Now you're looping in her mind, replaying your voice, rereading your last text as if it were a secret code she needs to decipher. This is the crucial shift, when she starts to pursue, not out of strategy, but out of tension, unresolved emotion, and urgent longing for resolution. That's what most men never understand. They stay too long, reply too quickly, eliminate all tension, and in doing so, kill desire in its cradle. But you'll learn to walk away with elegance, to leave her with a taste, not the full meal, to create silences that resonate louder than words, because that's the most beautiful and cruel paradox. The less she has of you, the more she'll need you. This isn't blind arrogance. It's not calculated manipulation. It's pure psychology applied with mastery. And the man who masters it doesn't chase like a desperate predator. He attracts by letting go, he pulls by releasing, he conquers by withdrawing at the perfect moment. Strategic neglect goes beyond simply disappearing. It's a subtle art of being present and absent in the perfect proportion. It's creating an experience of emotional contrast that keeps her constantly off balance in the best possible way. When you practice neglect correctly, you create an intermittent reinforcement pattern, the same mechanism that makes gambling so addictive. The reward isn't guaranteed, it's not predictable, and for that very reason, it becomes more valuable. Her brain starts working overtime trying to decipher the pattern, trying to predict when she'll get the next dose of you. But there's a crucial nuance here. Neglect doesn't mean being cruel or inconsiderate. It's not about ghosting or playing childish games. It's about respecting your own time and space, maintaining your own priorities, not making her the center of your universe. Because the moment she becomes your number one priority, the moment you rearrange your entire life around her, you lose the mystery, you lose the tension, you lose the desire. You become predictable, and predictable, by definition, cannot be exciting. Strategic neglect manifests in concrete decisions. You're not constantly checking your phone to see if she texted. You don't cancel important plans just because she invited you last minute. You're not available 24/7 to solve her emotional crises. Not because you don't care, but because you have a rich and complete life of your own. And here's the irony. The more you maintain your own priorities, the more you live on your own terms, the more you attract her. Because you're showing her you're a man with standards, a man who isn't desperate, a man who can live perfectly well without her, but chooses to include her in his life. This dynamic creates something rare and precious. You become a choice, not a necessity. And people value what they choose far more than what they need. Needs are burdens. Choices are privileges. When she feels she's with you not because she needs you, but because she actively chooses you among all her other options, the nature of the relationship changes. It becomes something more conscious, more intentional, more powerful. It's no longer a dynamic of dependence, but of interdependence between two complete people. Neglect also operates at an informational level. You don't need to tell her everything about yourself immediately. You don't need to vomit your entire life story on the first date. Save something for later. Keep some mysteries. Let her discover things about you gradually, like layers revealing themselves over time. This gradual unveiling of who you are keeps curiosity alive, keeps the desire to know you more active. Once someone believes they know you completely, the exploration ends. And with the end of exploration comes the end of excitement. Remember, desire thrives in the gap between the known and the unknown. When you eliminate that gap, when you become completely predictable and accessible, desire fades. Strategic neglect keeps that gap open, keeps that space of possibility alive where desire can continue to flourish. This is the art of not giving everything, not out of cruelty or game playing, but out of understanding that hunger is the best spice, that anticipation is often sweeter than fulfillment, that desire lives in the spaces in between, not in constant satiety. Taking the initiative and escalating the interaction when necessary, without doubts paralyzing you. This is the moment of truth where most men fail miserably, where all the previous pillars crumble if you don't have the courage to act. You created attraction, built emotional tension, played the game of detachment. Now you need to act decisively. And this is where fear appears in all its ugliness. The fear of rejection, the fear of ruining everything you've built, the fear of being seen as invasive or inappropriate. But let me tell you a secret that will transform your perspective forever. Women want you to take the initiative. They fantasize about a man who knows what he wants and isn't afraid to go for it, without apologizing for his masculinity. Almost no one realizes this, but hesitation kills more opportunities than rejection itself. When you feel the moment is right, act without asking permission, without asking if you can. You read her signals and move forward with the confidence of someone who understands the silent language of desire. It could be taking her hand as you walk. It could be pulling her closer during a conversation. It could be that kiss at the perfect moment when silence speaks louder than 1,000 words. Calculated audacity is what separates men from boys who play at being men. It's what makes her mention you to her friends the next day. It's what creates impactful memories she can't forget, even if she wanted to. Are you ready for this level of intensity and commitment? Now I know what you must be thinking, and let's clear it up once and for all. This isn't manipulation in the toxic sense of the word. It's not being a heartless jerk. Manipulation is when you lie, deceive, or do something against her will. What I'm teaching you is exactly the opposite. It's about being authentic in your masculinity, understanding what truly creates attraction, and acting accordingly with that understanding. Think with me. When a woman puts on makeup, chooses a beautiful outfit, wears special perfume, is she being manipulative? Of course not. She's presenting herself in the best possible way. She's using tools to make herself more attractive. That's exactly what you're doing. Using psychological tools to awaken genuine attraction. It's not about deceiving anyone or creating a false personality. It's about being the best version of yourself, the most authentic and powerful. And let me tell you something few men know. Women want to be seduced. They dream about it, read books about it, watch movies about it, but they want to be seduced by a real man, not an insecure guy who apologizes for existing, not a man afraid of his own shadow. They want to feel that chill in their stomach, that tension in the air, that game of glances that says more than 1,000 empty conversations. And when you master the secret code I'm revealing to you, you become that man. You become the guy they can't get out of their heads, the mystery that keeps them awake thinking. Audacity is the pillar that actualizes everything before it. Without it, movement, attitude, and neglect are just theory, unrealized potential. With audacity, everything comes to life. Everything becomes real and tangible. Audacity isn't recklessness. It's not imprudence. It's calibrated action based on a precise reading of signals. It's understanding the exact moment she's ready, when the atmosphere is conducive, when the tension has reached its optimal point. An audacious man reads body language. He notices when she leans into you, when her gaze lingers on your lips, when her voice changes tone, when her laugh becomes more intimate, and he responds to those signals without hesitation, without ulterior motives, without asking explicit permission that would break the moment. Audacity manifests in concrete actions. Taking her hand decisively, physically guiding her through a crowd with your hand on her lower back, whispering something in her ear close enough for her to feel your breath, maintaining intense eye contact without looking away. It's important to understand that audacity isn't about forcing situations. It's not about ignoring genuine resistance. It's more like a dance where you lead with confidence and she decides whether to follow. If she feels real resistance, an audacious man backs off without drama, without a wounded ego, keeping his dignity intact. And often, this respect for her boundaries, combined with your intact confidence, further increases her attraction. Audacity must be calibrated according to the context. What's audacious on a first date is different from what's audacious after several interactions. What works in a festive environment is different from what works in a more formal setting. The truly audacious man understands these differences and adapts his approach without losing his essence. Many men confuse audacity with aggressiveness or insistence. Nothing could be further from the truth. True audacity has a light, almost playful quality. It doesn't come from desperation or need, but from abundance and confidence. It's the fluid movement of a man who knows that if this opportunity doesn't work out, there will be others. Audacity also manifests in verbal communication. It's asking questions others don't dare to ask, expressing opinions others would silence for fear of offending, setting clear boundaries when something isn't right for you. It's the willingness to be polarizing, to accept that you won't please everyone, and to be perfectly okay with that. A crucial aspect of audacity is the ability to maintain it in the face of rejection or adversity. Anyone can be audacious when everything is going well. True character is shown when you face resistance. Do you maintain your center? Do you preserve your dignity? Do you remain the same confident man even if she doesn't respond as you expected? This consistency is what truly impresses women. They see a man whose value doesn't depend on their reaction, a man who doesn't change his behavior to please them. And paradoxically, this emotional independence attracts them even more. Audacity, ultimately, isn't about specific techniques or moves. It's about living without the handbrake on. It's about expressing your desires, intentions, and values without apology or justification. It's about creating defining moments where you take control of the situation with a calm confidence that says, "I know exactly what I'm doing." And when you master this pillar, you discover something extraordinary. Audacity becomes addictive. The adrenaline rush that comes with taking calculated risks, with pushing boundaries, with living on the edge, becomes a way of life. You can no longer imagine returning to the mediocrity of indecision and constant doubt. Now let's talk about something crucial most people overlook: magnetic touch. This isn't about uncontrolled lust. It's not about groping or forcing situations. This is an ancient ritual, a primitive language that transcends words. Touch is humanity's oldest language, older than words, deeper than logic. It bypasses the mind and speaks directly to the subconscious where real decisions are made. But here's the secret that changes everything. She isn't attracted to the touch itself. She's attracted to the way it happens. Its perfect timing, its rhythm, its clear intention. The right touch at the right moment can bind a memory to her body in a way that will last forever. But the wrong touch, the rushed, the forced, kills everything instantly. How does it begin then? Not with blind audacity, but with calculated innocence. A light touch on her shoulder as you laugh at something she said. A hand gently guiding her through a doorway. A slow, playful high five that lingers half a second longer than normal. Moments that feel natural, but leave an indelible mark. You escalate not through pressure, but through presence. You touch, then withdraw, and that withdrawal is everything. It creates absence, and absence creates longing. This is what most men never understand. Touch isn't about the contact, it's about what happens in the moment after. Because when you touch and stop, her body feels the silence and begins to miss you before you've even left. This is intermittent touch, the psychological equivalent of a heartbeat. On, off, close, far, safe, dangerous. It builds tension she can't name. It floods her system with oxytocin and dopamine, the same chemicals released during pleasure and connection. But you're not connecting. You're etching yourself into her nervous system like a mark she'll never be able to erase. And here's the beautiful paradox. The more natural it seems, the more powerful it becomes. You shouldn't telegraph intention. You shouldn't hesitate. You touch like a man who has done it 1,000 times. Not because you're desperate, but because you're self-contained. Your hand doesn't ask permission. It reads her reaction. If she leans into you, you know. If she pulls back, you adapt. Because masculine touch isn't invasive. It's observant. It listens with the skin. And when used correctly, it makes her feel something terribly rare in the modern world. A man who is in control of himself and attuned to her at the same time. That is magnetic. That's what keeps her up at night. Because long after words are forgotten, she'll remember how you made her feel. Not in her mind, but in her body. There's one last weapon you must master. One most men don't even think about. Cold reading isn't magic. It's precision. The silent art of reading what she wants before she even knows it herself. Because every woman leaves subtle signals, not in her words, but in her patterns. The way she dresses, the speed of her voice, the rhythm of her walk, what she posts online, where she goes, what she avoids. You're no longer just a man. You're an emotional detective reading between the lines, tracking the energy behind the words, feeling the signals she doesn't speak aloud. A woman who wears flashy, sparkling jewelry is screaming for attention. She wants the spotlight and confirmation that she still has it. A woman in subtle, elegant tones is deeper, more private. She yearns to be understood, not just superficially seen. Observe her way of speaking. If she speaks fast, gestures broadly, she's spontaneous, reactive, guided by pure feeling. If she speaks slowly, carefully, she's calculated, guarded, strategic in every move. And when you adjust your energy to match her hidden nature, when you mirror what she truly needs without her asking, you become irresistible because you're not offering what she's consciously demanding. You're offering what she's secretly dying to receive. That's the real power. The understanding that every human being hungers for something they can't even articulate. But here's the trap most men fall into. They try to do everything instantly, gorge themselves on techniques, force results, imitate, act, perform a script that isn't their own. But this isn't acting. This is the embodiment of your true masculine nature. So slow down. Start with just one pillar. Apply it for a week until it becomes real, until it's a part of you. Then another and another, until the system isn't something you memorize, but something you are. Because this method I'm giving you isn't about becoming someone else. It's about unleashing the real you, the alpha that society buried under years of shame, guilt, and conditioning that made you believe your masculinity was something to apologize for. Female desire operates according to deep principles that have been coded into DNA through thousands of years of evolution. This isn't a superficial game of memorized techniques. It's a fundamental understanding of the invisible currents that drive human attraction. Women respond to a man who embodies archetypal qualities: the protector, the provider, the leader, the lover. We're not talking about superficial roles or stereotypes, but primordial energies that resonate at a subconscious level. When a man integrates these energies authentically, he becomes magnetic without apparent effort. The secret language of female desire isn't spoken with words, but with presence. It's the way you occupy space, how you modulate your voice, how your eyes communicate intention without desperation. It's the congruence between what you say and what your body radiates. It's the harmony between your words and your actions. Women are constantly unconsciously scanning for these signals of congruence. Their primitive brain is programmed to detect falsehoods, to identify when a man is faking qualities he doesn't truly possess. This is an evolutionary adaptation to avoid investing emotional and biological resources in partners who cannot deliver on what they promise. That's why superficial tricks and memorized techniques fail in the long term. They can create momentary attraction, but eventually, the incongruence becomes evident. True mastery comes when these principles flow naturally from you, when they are genuine expressions of your essence, not superimposed layers of learned behavior. In this chasm between what you've been taught and the truth you've just discovered, lies the man you've always been but were taught to bury. We're not talking about cheap tricks or one-night techniques. We're talking about the existential scalpel that separates the man who begs for attention from the one who magnetizes effortlessly. Will you remain the transparent ghost who observes while others live the life you desire? Or will you dare to awaken the sleeping monster within you, that primordial being who instinctively knows how to pull the strings of desire? The choice was always yours, but now you know the truth. And the truth, once seen, cannot be ignored. Those who ignore this message will remain trapped in the limbo of emotional invisibility, begging for scraps of affection. But you who have made it this far no longer have an excuse. It's time to stop being a spectator in your own life. Comment right now, "I command from silence," and join the few who understood that desire isn't begged for, it's awakened. I'll see you in the next revelation, where we'll delve deeper into secrets even your best friends wouldn't dare tell you.